So can you see my screen?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I am able to see your screen.
Yes. I have included polls also that you told 3 6 polls.
Yeah.
హలో, నేను తర్వాత చేస్తాను. ఆఫీస్లో ఉన్నాను. వెబినార్ ఒకటి ఉంది, అందులో ఉంది. గంట. ఇప్పుడు 4 o'clock స్టార్ట్ అవుతుంది. ఒక 5:36 అలా చేస్తాను. చెప్తాను. అమ్మకు కూడా చెప్పాను నేను, కానీ ఇప్పుడు వద్దులే. ఉమ్, చేశాను. అది రేపు వస్తుంది. ఒకటి రేపు వస్తుంది, ఇంకొకటి సాటర్డే వస్తుంది. బ్యాగ్స్ సాటర్డే వస్తాయి. నేను చెప్తానులే తర్వాత. అక్కడికి మన అడ్రస్కే పెట్టాను. ఉమ్, లేదు, ముందు గాజువాక్ అడ్రస్ ఉంటుంది, కానీ మార్చానులే. ఫ్లిప్కార్ట్లో అవుతుంది మార్చడానికి. గాజువాకది లేదు ఇప్పుడు. ఉమ్, సరే. బై. Sir, I'm starting the webinar, sir.
Yeah, yes, please, Pawan. Go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. I hope I'm audible. Please confirm with yes or no in the chat box. We will be starting the webinar in another 5 minutes since other participants are also joining. Shankar Jayaraman, thank you for confirming. Lalita Chaudhary, thank you for confirming. Ganesh Kelkar, thank you for confirming. Thank you all for joining in this evening. We will begin in the shortly in another 5 minutes. While we are waiting for to start the webinar, I would like to know if measure of the audience are from account background. Please type yes if you are from accounts background. While we all know today's topic, I would like to know what audience is expecting from today's webinar. We would like to see some responses in the comments. And if you want any questions, if you have any other expectations from the webinar, you can type in the chat box so that we can pick it up while we are doing the webinar. Mr. Kashinath asking IMS navigation, we'll definitely cover that. Kashinath. Audience, please type if you have any other expectations related to GST or invoice management system in the chat box. In our today's webinar, we have plenty of frequently asked questions covered in the webinar itself. So most of the questions that you may ask, like how to get IMS access, billing estimation by Partha, can be covered. If any other expectations that you have, you can mention in the chat box so that we can pick it up and we can highlight more on the specific topic. We'll be starting the webinar in another 4 minutes. Thank you, audience, for joining. Also, audience, if you have any specific case kind of questions, you can type it up in the Q&A box so that it will be easy for us to take it up and answer the questions. Ms. Lalita Chaudhary was asking a question. Yes, we'll definitely take it up, Lalita.
One, are we good to go?
Yes, sir. Good evening, everyone. My name is Pawan Kumar Sahu. I handle product marketing at Websol. I'll be your moderator for the day. Before we head into webinar, I would like to give a small introduction of our company that I represent. I will try to keep it short. Websol was part of Wipro back in the days. We were the printer manufacturing division of Wipro, and we are specialized in dot matrix printer category. Over the years, the company decided to step out of Wipro and form a separate entity in the name of Web Solutions. Our signature offering, managed print services, was carried out over 2 decades, and with evolving needs and changing market trends, we decided to bring digital workplace solutions to our portfolio. We also expanded our product and service portfolio to cater to mass markets. Over the years, we also collaborated with market giants like Ricoh and Fujifilm. And I also want to highlight a milestone in our journey that we underwent complete brand transformation by the name of Websol. Let us take you to some of the highlights of our company. We come up with 20 years of industry experience with over 500 plus enterprise customers. We are present in over 2000 service locations. In fact, we also awarded as DMS Solution of the Year in 2022. You can check out some of our trusted clients in the market giants like Metro, HDFC, Tata Capital, etc. Let us move to the next slide where we can talk about some of the company highlights and what we do inside the company. Fluidworks is our intelligent workplace suite catering to wide range of interdepartmental functions. We have gamut of products under the name of Fluidworks. Moving on to Fluid Print, we offer print infrastructure solutions according to your custom services. We offer both CapEx and OpEx models, and we charge the customer according to pay per print basis. Fluid Map is one of our tools to track all the assets in your network, and we will show key parameters like uptime, downtime, toner or cartridge levels. Fluid Trail is one of our process automation solution, which we offer document management hosted by Microsoft Cloud. With Fluid Trail, we can automate all your office processes like employee records management, candidate onboarding, etc. We also offer managed GST solution for filing, reconciliation, e-invoice, e-way bill automation, etc. We also present in retail side for billing printers, office automation printers, and consumables as a portfolio. Since most of the audience are from finance and audience background, if anyone wants to know more about FlowTax, our GST solution for filing, reconciliation, e-invoice, e-way bill automation, we are providing a free demo. I'll be quickly launching a poll to take your acceptance over this. Audience, you can see a poll screen on your screens. If anyone wants to interested in free demo, you can click S so that our team can contact you for the free demo of FlowTax. FlowTax is a all-in-one platform for GST invoicing, reconciliation, e-way bill automation, etc. We also provide few services with managed GST services, and we are coming up with new features, which includes IMS, e-invoice management, invoice management services in our portfolio. If anyone wants to take the free demo, you can click on S in the poll box. Thank you, audience, for all the responses. I'll quickly move on to the speaker introduction. I would like to introduce our speaker of the day, Mr. Akela Prakash Rao, sir. Mr. Akela is an independent indirect tax advocate. He graduated in 1989 from BITS Pilani in electrical and electronics engineering. He also a gold medal holder who completed LLB from Andhra University in 2001. And he is having more than 27 years of experience in the field of indirect tax with exposure of government, consultancy, and industries like auto and pharma. It's an absolute pleasure to have you here, sir. I'm sure audience also looking forward to directly hearing from you. Over to you, sir.
Good evening to one and all. Thanks for joining us today for this interesting new topic, that invoice management system. So there's a lot of apprehensions which are going around, that why at all a new complaints methodology being introduced by the government. So unless we understand what exactly it is, that we will not be able to appreciate that why at all it has come and whether it is really adding on to our problems or solving our problem. But before that, I just wanted to keep certain things clear for you. I may be rushing through the presentation because most of my presentation is the surrounding around the frequently asked questions, which is there in the public domain, because there's nothing new that we need to cover except to answer the questions that practically people are having it, which the government has done it for us. And then they have come out with the supplementary FAQs also, which I'm including in the presentation for the benefit of all of you, that this presentation is going to be shared anyway, so you can go through it. So together we are going to go through all those FAQs. So there will be more of repetitions also will be there. So kindly bear with me that the question is already answered, some that kind of a things that we may come across that we need to see. So the webinar agenda is going to be that what is the origin and what is the need for it, and then the FAQs and what to expect in the future and the Q&As. So we are keeping it simple only because not much is available in the public domain regarding this new introduction from the government. Hence, we have to confine ourselves to what is available and what is that we heard from the industry after the launch. That's it. Because the first return is going to be filed in the month of November only. And we got to wait till that time because all people have to test it. So let's go. Next slide, please. Yeah, to enable the taxpayers to efficiently address the invoice corrections or amendments with their suppliers through the portal, a new communication process is brought at portal. And this will also facilitate the taxpayer in matching of their records or invoices which is issued by their suppliers for availing the correct ITC. And GSTN developed a new functionality called invoice management system, which will allow the recipient taxpayers to either accept or reject an invoice or to keep it pending in the system, which can be availed later. Briefly, like what is this IMS is all about this. So this facility is made available to the taxpayers from the 1st of October onwards on the GST portal. So the said functionality is a major enhancement in the ITC ecosystem of the GST. Now, only the accepted invoices by the recipients would become part of their GSTR2B as their eligible ITC. Therefore, IMS will provide the taxpayers an opportunity to review the genuineness and authenticity of the received invoices. Once the suppliers receive any invoice in the GSTR1, 1FF, or 1A, the same will be reflected in the IMS dashboard of the recipient. So, the idea of this IMS is, see, there are two aspects when you receive goods. As per the law, what it says that you should have received an invoice, and the invoice should contain the description of the goods that you are receiving. It can be services also, so the description of the services and all. And then you need to verify whether all the information that is there in the invoice is as per your PO, as per your requirement, the taxes are correctly applied, your name, other details are correctly captured, and the GSTN number of the supplier is also properly captured, and all other details that this sanitary check on the invoice has to happen. After that, what you do, if it is goods, definitely the goods will be subjected to quality check at your end. And once you are satisfied that everything is fine at the gate, that you are going to accept the supply. After that, you will be doing the GRN. If they are to be subjected to any kind of a chemical test and all that, then they will be. And after that, you take a call whether the product can be accepted into your inventory and then subsequently issued to the production, or it has to be rejected. If so, then what are the steps? That's how it is. So there are two things that, one is the document verification. The second one is actually verifying the supply. So it can be services. If it is a service, normally that post the receipt of the service only you will be receiving the invoice. So in such a scenario that you are pretty sure in your mind that once the invoice comes, whether to accept or reject. So that is very clear. But as far as the goods are concerned, that the sanitary check on the document will be complete, but till you receive the goods, you will not be in a position whether the consignment is going to be accepted at your end, whether there is any short shipment or excess, all these things, that only on physical verification of the goods it can happen. But before that, the document, at least if it is made available to you prior to the receipt of the goods, then it will save your time. That's how the government has thought. And second thing, why at all that this kind of a system, that are they forcing you to do anything in advance? It is nothing of that sort. Say, for example, this system was brought into existence from 1st of October. That means that from 1st of October, whatever the supplies that have happened, those are going to be captured in the system and they are going to be displayed to you in the IMS dashboard. It means to say that only. So from 14th onwards, that these data is appearing for some of the SSCs. Some of the SSCs are still facing a problem that they are not able to see the IMS dashboard. So if such cases are there, that they have to take it up with the help desk teams and all in order to get the view of the IMS dashboard. But in the month of November, definitely the IMS is going to come to your rescue for filing your returns. So why at all that they have taken this kind of a step? Is it adding to your compliances? Actually, I don't feel it in that way, because on the last day of a month, 30th or 31st, if some shipment has started moving, say for example, the farthest distance from Kanyakumari to Kashmir also, it will not take so much of a time for the travel. So the goods are certainly that you are going to receive it on or before you file your GSTR 3B, because GSTR 3B is the culmination of the input tax credit in your hands. Hence, before that, you are certainly going to receive your supplies. You can examine the document that you have received. You can see even the supply of the goods also as to their quality, and you will be in a position to take a decision whether to accept, reject, or of course keep it pending. That is one option is there, but we will see what are the controls around it. Next slide, please. Yeah, the recipient can accept or reject an invoice, or can simply keep it pending in the system. So there appears to be three options for you: accept, reject, or keep it pending. But these actions can be taken from the time of saving the records in the GSTR1 by the supplier taxpayer till the recipient taxpayer files his or her corresponding GSTR 3B. So the end date is going to be the filing of GSTR 3B. So what is this end date? That we will come to know. If recipient doesn't take any action on invoice in the IMS, then it will be deemed accepted and will move to 2B as an accepted invoice. So this is the key. So if you are going to accept it, then it is good. If you are going to reject it, then the action will be at your supplier's end. But if you are keep it pending, but that pendency is till the date that you are going to file your GSTR 3B. But if you keep it pending just like that, it automatically deemed accepted. So that is what is the catch over here. In case the supplier amends the details of a saved invoice before filing the GSTR1, in such cases, the amended invoice will replace the original invoice in the IMS, irrespective of the action taken by the recipient on the original invoice. So there are two scenarios that you can accept or reject. Once you have accepted, then it is going to move to 2B. But if the accepted invoice has been amended by your supplier, again, that amended invoice will come for your action. Again, you have to accept or reject. But if you have rejected it, definitely he will take an action from the supplier's end. And again, it will be there in your dashboard, either for acceptance or rejection. So it is a flexible system only. There is nothing rigid about it. In case the supplier has amended any invoice filed in the GSTR1 through GSTR1A, then the same will also flow to the IMS. However, ITC corresponding to the same will flow in the 2B of the recipient generated for the subsequent month only. So the invoices which would be kept pending can be availed by the taxpayers at any future point of a time, but not later than the limits prescribed by Section 16(4) of the CGST Act. All the invoices and records reported or saved by the supplier taxpayer in their GSTR1, 1FF or 1A will be available in the IMS dashboard of the recipient for taking action. Supplier will also be able to see what action the recipient has taken. So it is a kind of two-way communication between the supplier and the recipient. So what is the right time to accept or reject? That there is nothing called a right time or a wrong time. But before you file your 3B, you should know what is the credit that you have and what is your output tax liability and how much cash that you require from the management in order to meet that month's obligation. So before you have to take such a decision, that you should be able to decide whether to accept or reject. So the timeline is already fixed, 20th of every month, because that is the time when we are all filing our 2B returns. Next slide, please. Yeah, further at the time of generation of the 2B only, the filed invoices or records by the supplier will be considered for the computation of the ITC. Based on the current cutoff dates and the action taken by the recipient, a draft 2B will be made available to the recipient on the 14th of the subsequent month as currently being generated. However, the recipient will be able to take actions of accept or reject or keep pending even after generation of the 2B till the filing of 3B. If the recipient taxpayers have taken an action on any invoice after 14th of the month, then he would be required to recompute their 2B. However, they will not be able to take any action after filing 3B for the same month. It may be noted that till GSTR 3B is filed by the taxpayers, 2B for the subsequent month will not be generated. So there are some kind of checks and balances. So the next month the 2B can be filed, but will be generated only if you have filed the 3B of the previous month. Those are some kind of sanity that has been inbuilt in the system by the government. So that's how the IMS works. Next slide, please. So on the basis of action taken by the taxpayer, the invoice or records can be categorized as below. No action taken. There are invoices or records where no action has been taken by the recipient. They will be treated as deemed accepted at the time of 2B. If you have not taken any action till the generation of the 2B, then it is deemed acceptance. Accepted, then accepted records and will be a part of 2B. Rejected will not be considered for 2B. Pending will not be considered 2B generation for the month, but same will be carried forward in the IMS itself for further action in the subsequent month. So this functionality is a facilitation for the taxpayers, will not add any complaints burden on the taxpayers, as no action records shall be considered as deemed accepted, and the taxpayer's intervention will only be required in case a record need to be rejected or kept pending. Next slide, please. So how this is going to operate for a QRMP? It is almost the same, but for a small change, which I am going to explain you, the records and invoices saved or filed through IFF by a QRMP taxpayer will flow to the IMS and will become part of the 2B as per the action taken by the recipient in the IMS on the same. The 2B of the recipient will be generated monthly unless the recipient is a QRMP taxpayer, and it may be noted that 2B will not be generated for first and second months because it is a quarterly filing. So only in the month 3, M3, the Q2 GSTR 2B gets generated in the case of QRMP taxpayers. Next slide, please. So the flow, how it is going to be is that the accepted records will become part of the ITC available, and GST on accepted records will auto-populate into the 3B as eligible ITC. Rejected records will become part of the ITC rejected section of the respective 2B, and ITC of the rejected records will not auto-populate into the 3B. Pending records will not become part of the 2B or 3B. Such records will remain in the IMS dashboard till the same is accepted or rejected, but pending action shall not be allowed in the following scenarios. See, original credit note, you cannot keep it pending. You have to take a decision. Upward amendment of the credit note irrespective of the action taken by the recipient on the original credit note. Downward amendment of the credit note if original credit note was rejected by the recipient. And downward amendment of the invoice or the debit note where the original invoice or debit note was accepted by the recipient. So this is the flow of IMS, that how accept, reject, and pending operations are going to be there. Next slide, please. Yeah, some of the key points that there is something called deemed acceptance that one needs to understand it very clearly. At the time of 2B generation, a record will be considered as deemed accepted if no action is taken on that record. It is mandatory to recompute the 2B from the IMS dashboard in case of any change in action already taken on the concerned record, or any action is taken after the 14th of the month, that is date of generation of the draft 2B. So the following supplies will not go into IMS and will be directly populated in the 3B. One is inward RCM supplies, where supplier has reported in table 4B or of 1FF or GSTR1 or GSTR1A, and supplies where ITC is not eligible due to 16.4 or on account of POS rules. So these records are not going to form part of your IMS dashboard. Records will flow into the IMS dashboard at the time of saving of the record by the supplier, irrespective of the form, and the recipient can take action on such record in IMS. However, such records will be populated in 2B after filing of the GSTR 1 or 1A by the supplier. All accepted, deemed accepted, rejected records will move out of IMS dashboard after filing of the respective 3Bs, and pending records will remain in the dashboard, and they can be accepted or rejected in the future months. Next slide, please. So it is mandatory to take action on the original record and file the respective 3B before taking action on the amended record. When original and amended record belongs to two different GSTR 2B return periods, if both records belong to the same period, only the amended record will be considered for ITC calculation. So all these things currently in manual system also, you are undergoing all these pains. So there's nothing new that they have brought into the picture. It is the same old system, but the only thing is now that they have issued a document to you, and this facilitation measure has been announced. Even without this being announced also, we all are doing this manually. Any change made in the record before filing the GSTR 1 by the supplier will reset the record's status in the recipient dashboard, and 2B will be sequential now. That system will generate 2B of a return period only if 3B of the previous return is filed. That I told you that the system control it is, and the liability of the supplier will be increased in the 3B for the subsequent tax period for the invoices and records which have been rejected by the recipient in the IMS for the following transactions: that original credit note rejected by the recipient, upward amendment of the credit note rejected by the recipient irrespective of the action taken by the recipient on the original credit note, and downward amendment of the credit note rejected by the recipient if the original credit note was rejected by him, and downward amendment of the invoice or debit note rejected by the recipient where original invoice or debit note was accepted by him and respective 3B has also been filed. So these are some of the important points one needs to keep it in mind, that when your liability is going to increase because of these reasons. Next slide, please. So now I'm taking up the FAQs, but I'm not going to take too much of a time on this. I may rush through them in order to address your queries, because that is most important for us, because all of you must have gone through it. The only thing is that you are sparing this particular time only to concentrate on the IMS, and we together are reading what is available in the public domain in order to gather our doubts and to get the clarifications also. So we will spend quality time on that. Now I think maybe Pawan wants to introduce a poll that I'll pause for a minute. Pawan, go ahead.
Audience, I will be launching a poll related to the topic. The poll box is on your screen. What happens if no action is taken by recipient on the record in IMS? Record is rejected, record is deleted, record is deemed accepted, record is kept pending. Please type your answers in the poll box. Also, audience, if you have any questions or queries to ask with sir, you can type in the Q&A or chat box. We have dedicated Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We will take up all your questions and have a discussion with the sir. If you feel like asking any questions in the middle of webinar, you can just type your question in Q&A section or chat box so that we can take it up all the questions at the end of the webinar. We can see good participation in the poll responses. Most of the participants answering correct. The webinar poll will be closing in another 10 seconds. Please type your answers in the poll box, audience.
Yeah, Pawan, I think the results are out that the record is deleted is not the answer, but a record is kept pending is partially an answer because it will be kept pending till the 3B or the final 2B is going to be generated. So you can't be inactive for too long a period that you have to take an action. Otherwise, the record becomes deemed accepted. So majority of the people have understood the concept. So we are ending this poll and I'm going ahead with the FAQs. So in the FAQs, that the invoice management system is a facility, so which I told you. So how you can access it, that the dashboard under services returns in IMS dashboard will be visible to you. And when it is going to be launching on 1st of October, I told you all the invoices which are generated on or after 1st of October are going to form part of this IMS dashboard. And the view is started for the people from 14th October onwards. Next slide, please. Pawan, next slide, please. Yeah, what all records that are there, all saved original invoices and records, and all amendments will be available in the IMS. But where ITC is not eligible, either because of the POS rules or section 64 will not appear in the IMS, and they will directly go to the ITC not available section of the GSTR 2B. What will happen to the accepted or rejected records? All accepted will move to 2B. All rejected will go back to the supplier for taking action, and all pending records will be for the future tax periods will remain in the IMS only. And when the documents will be flown to IMS, as soon as they are saved in the by the suppliers. So we need not wait for the actual supplies to be received at your end. That is what is the beauty in the system, that you will come to know immediately as soon as the e-invoice is generated and it is uploaded in the GSTR1 by your supplier. You will get to see that. Next slide, please. So when the recipient can take an action, the minute it is available in the dashboard, that you can take an action. And what records will not be forming part of it? Documents flowing from GSTR 5 and 6, IceGate documents, RCM records, ITC not eligible because of the POS rules in the section 16.4, and documents where ITC is to be reversed on account of rule 37A. These 5 categories of documents will not be visible in the IMS dashboard. Who will have access? All registered taxpayers will have access to it, including SEZ units and developers and casual taxable persons. They will have access to IMS dashboard. Next slide, please. Yeah, what are the actions that can be taken? You can either accept or reject or pending. But by default, all records will flow into the no action category, and records with no action will be deemed accepted at the time of generation of GSTR 2B. Are there any invoices or records where pending action is not allowed in IMS? Yes, there are 4 scenarios, as we told. Original credit note, upward amendment of the credit note, irrespective of the action taken on the original credit note, downward amendment of the credit note, irrespective of even if the original credit note has been rejected by him, and the downward amendment of the invoice or a debit note rejected by the recipient where original debit note was accepted by him and respective GSTR 3B has also already been filed. Can I take action on multiple times on a document? Yes, you can take multiple times before you file the 3B, because once you file the 3B, it is end of the action for you for that month. So till 3B filing, you can multiple times amend your choices. Not a problem. Next slide, please. And what happens to the original record if the same record is amended? Always the amendment will be the one that gets displayed. And what will happen to the documents on which the taxpayer has taken action on IMS? Accept will move, reject will go back to the suppliers, pending will be there till the 2B is generated. After that, they will move into the 2B dashboard. But if you keep it pending, then they can be adjusted in the future tax periods also. No actions will become deemed acceptance once the 2B gets generated. And the difference that you have to identify between pending and no action, only the no action will become deemed acceptance, but pending can be kept pending for the future tax liability. That is the prominent difference one needs to identify. Accept, reject, pending, no action. So there are 4 kinds of actions that you have. So accept is fine, reject is also understood. No action will become a deemed acceptance, but pending can be for the future tax periods. Which documents will be considered in the 2B? Only accepted will be considered in 2B. And all the deemed acceptances also, which where no action has been there, that they also will form part of 2B. Next slide, please. Yeah. What if I have taken an action on a document in the saved status, but the same is edited or changed? Again, you will get an opportunity to take action on the amended record. And will reverse charge documents received from the registered supplier also form part of an IMS? IMS? The answer is no. And as a taxpayer, what all will I be able to view on the IMS? Recipient view and there are supplier view. So as a recipient, the taxpayer will have an inward supply view to see all the specified documents which are saved or filed by your respective suppliers. These documents will be available for action by the recipient. Supplier view, as a supplier, the taxpayer will have an outward supply view to see actions taken on all the specified documents by the respective recipient, and it will be made available shortly. So currently the supplier view is not readily available, but the recipient view is made available in the IMS dashboard. Next slide, please. What happens if recipient rejects a record? If it is rejected, then it goes back for editing by the supplier. If the recipient rejects it, it can be edited and he can file the GSTR1. The supplier can file the GSTR1 again, and the edited record will be made available in the IMS, but not the original record. And if the recipient rejects it after filing the GSTR1 by the supplier, then it has to be adjusted through 1A only, and amended record will be made available in the IMS for action by the recipient again. What will happen to the document in the IMS on filing the 3B? Then all that accepted, rejected records belonging to a particular 2B will be removed from IMS on filing. So what flows there is only those which are kept pending will flow to the next month. What will happen to the documents kept pending in the IMS? Pending records will continue to be the IMS till the time of cutoff date. And once the records crosses the timeline prescribed under 16.4, it will be removed from the IMS. Next slide, please. Can I download the data? Excel download facility is available. And what is the draft 2B? Draft 2B is something which will be generated on 14th of every month, and it can be amended multiple times before you file your 3B. Can I take action after generation of the 2B? Yes, you can take action, as we discussed, that if it is going to be rejected, then it will be supplier's action. If it is going to be accepted, then definitely it will flow to 3B also, finally to discharge your tax liability. But if it is kept pending, then it will be available in the next month's dashboard also. But if it is no action, then it will be forced to get under deemed acceptance. Next slide, please. Yeah, is there any scenario where draft 2B will not be generated by system on 14th? Yes, in case previous 3B is not filed, then this month 2B. Otherwise, only because of system glitch, it may not happen. But otherwise, 2B will get generated if the 3B for the previous period is already filed. How many times I can regenerate 3B? There is no restriction on the number of times. You can generate till you file your 3B for the month. What about the 2B for the quarterly payers? The only difference is M1, M2, you don't have it. Only in the M3, the 2B gets generated. And otherwise, that there is no change between the regular taxpayer and the quarterly taxpayers. Next slide, please. Yeah, what will happen to the 2A? 2A will continue to be generated as it is. Is it mandatory to recompute the 2B? If there is any change made by the recipient on the IMS dashboard after the draft 2B generation, it is mandatory to recompute the 2B. How to take an action on records available on the IMS dashboard? Action on individual records. Recipient can select the action by clicking on the radio button available at line item level and click on the save button to save the action taken. On all the multiple selected records, only one type of action can be taken. It is but obvious, but multiple records can be selected for taking an action. So action on multiple records, to take action on multiple records in one go, recipient can select multiple records or all the records through the checkbox option available. And after selecting, system will enable main action buttons on heading of the action radio buttons with the count of the selected records. Though these action button, recipient can take action on multiple records in one go, but one action at one time. So if you have selected, then only one action can be taken. Then again, if you have taken another selection, then the action can be. But it cannot be that in the same multiple selections that you can have multiple actions. That is not possible. Of course, it is in common knowledge for you. I don't need to spend too much of a time on that point. Next slide, please.
So can we launch a poll, sir?
Yeah, if you got one, yes, please.
Audience, I have pasted a LinkedIn poll link in the chat box. We are running a LinkedIn poll in our LinkedIn page. You can quickly click on the link and you will be redirected to the LinkedIn page of ours. Please click the link and answer the question in the LinkedIn.
As I told you many times in the past webinars also, these polls are not going to give you any kind of a marks, are not going to be evaluated, but it is just to know that you are connected with the speaker and you are on the topic. So just to have your attention on the topic, that we will be having this small distractions in the form of poll, but all the poll queries are on the topic that we are discussing. Hence, somebody who is going with the flow will be able to definitely answer these questions.
Audience, I have pasted the link, poll link in the chat box. You can quickly click the link and you will be redirected to the poll in the LinkedIn. I'll be reading out the question. What is the main purpose of invoice management system under GST? Generating e-invoices, filing returns, managing supplier invoices, efficient invoice corrections. You can see good number of responses in the LinkedIn poll. Please click the link in the chat box and you will be redirected to the poll directly. Also, we have separate page for flow tax in LinkedIn. Please follow our page for updates on GST and any product related, any new feature additions. Everything will be announced in the page itself. You can follow our page Flowtax by Websol in LinkedIn. We are going to come up with new blogs, white papers, researches by Akela sir, and lot of GST related content in the Flowtax page. To get updated with all the updates related to GST, you can follow our page Flowtax by Websol in LinkedIn.
Yes, Pawan, can we move on to the presentation again?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, what will happen if the recipient rejects the tax invoice or the debit note for the supplies of 23-24, which was eligible for the 2B of October 24, given the deadline to avail the ITC by 30th of November. So this is a very important question. So the taxpayers are advised to reconcile their records before filing their GSTR1 for October 24 tax period, for which due date is 11th of November. However, recipient can change the action from the rejected to accepted in IMS and recompute the 2B at the time of filing the 3B and take corresponding ITC in the 3B for the month of October 24. So the government has responded to this practical query in this way, that you can change the action from rejected to the accepted, and then certainly then you can recompute your 2B by taking this additional ITC also. Can a supplier amend the FCM invoice to RCM, forward charge mechanism invoice to reverse charge mechanism invoice, and what will impact the ITC? Yes, the supplier can amend an invoice from FCM to RCM subject to the time limit prescribed under the law. The system shall reduce the ITC of the amended FCM invoice in the case of said invoice was accepted by the recipient. For RCM invoice shall flow to the 2B directly without hitting the IMS dashboard. As we told that our RCM invoices are not part of IMS dashboard. Can the place of supply be changed by the supplier in GSTR1, and what will be the impact of the ITC? Yes, place of supply can be changed by the supplier in the GSTR1 subject to the time limit given in the GST law. Further, if the ITC becomes ineligible due to change in the place of supply, then recipient should reverse the ITC in table 4B1. So these are some things which we are doing it. So by introduction of the IMS, nothing has changed. So many people are worried that no, our life has changed because of the introduction of the IMS, but slightly I'm in a different view about this particular thing. Let us see what is the reaction of the people during our interaction. Next slide, please. So what will happen if the recipient rejects the original credit note or upward amended credit note? If the recipient rejects the credit note and furnishes the 3B, then the corresponding liability will be added to the supplier liability in the 3B of the subsequent tax period. Next slide, please. There are some additional FAQs released by the government that also is forming part of it. So I'm taking through those additional FAQs. Which invoices are visible in the IMS dashboard? That it is launched for the return period of 24. Hence, all records eligible for 2B of October 24 return period onwards will be made available in the IMS dashboard. All the invoices which are part of the 2B of September 24 old returns will not be reflecting in the IMS. So only October on 1st onwards, the supplies are going to be there in the IMS dashboard, but till 30th of September, that you cannot see the invoices. Which is the first to be prepared using the actions. The first draft to be on the basis of actions will be for the month of October, that is on 14th of November 2024. Can the taxpayer take action after 14th of November and regenerate the 2B? The answer is yes. You can do it till you file your 3B. You can recompute your 2B. Next slide, please. Is it mandatory to act on IMS? What happens if no action is taken? So there is nothing mandatory to act on the records of the IMS dashboard. The records where no action is taken by the recipient would be treated as accepted by the system and 2B will be generated. So when should an invoice or a debit note be rejected? A rejection of an invoice or a debit note should be done very carefully, as rejection will result in no ITC for the recipient. A record may be rejected if it doesn't pertain to the recipient or the details of the record is erroneous to such an extent that credit note, debit note cannot handle the situation. So you need to understand this particular answer and the question also, which is a very important thing. So rejection always should be done with due diligence. Once you have rejected, it means it is a fake invoice using your GSTN number. Somebody is trying to push. So such an invoice, if you have identified and there is no relating purchase order from your end for receiving such supplies, and if you have rejected it, absolutely no problem. But in a hurry, if you have rejected it, then it is going to create a problem for you, because you will not be in a position to take any credit unless the supplier re-invoices it to you, which is going to be a cumbersome process. So to that extent that you have to keep it in mind also, that there can be some documentary deficiencies because of which you may tend to reject it. But only such cases which can't be handled through credit note or a debit note only should get rejected. Otherwise, outwardly, you should not be rejecting invoices. in light of the time limit available to avail the ITC being 30th of November for 23-24 or furnishing of annual returns, whichever is earlier, how can the ITC of erroneously rejected invoice and IMS be taken by the recipient for 23-24? This has already been answered. So the same answer has been included here in the additional FAQs. Next slide, please. How can a recipient accept a genuine credit note issued by the supplier in IMS, as it will result further reduction of the recipient's ITC? However, recipient has reversed ITC corresponding to the invoice itself because of 17.5, Rule 42, 38, 30, 43 are not availed the ITC at all because of the POS or 16.4 ineligibility. In such cases, recipient can accept the credit note in IMS. As recipient has already reversed the ITC, there is no need for reversal of ITC again in case of such credit notes. See, this is also to ease your troubles only. The answer has been given by the government that there is no double reversal which is mandated for you. What action shall be available on upward amended invoice or a debit note where the upward amended invoice or a debit note is saved by the supplier and the same is not filed? So the recipient will not be able to take an action on the upward amended invoice or a debit note if the said amended record has only been saved by the supplier in the one, but the same record has not been filed. The recipient will be able to take action once the supplier files such record. So till filing, that such an amendments are not going to be taken cognizance. Pawan, next slide, please. Yeah. What to do in the case wrong invoice is corrected by issuance of a credit note by the supplier instead of amending the same, and such credit note has been rejected by the recipient. In the absence of linkage of credit note with the corresponding invoice, system cannot understand whether original invoice for this credit note was accepted or rejected. Therefore, if the invoice is not correct, then it is advisable to rectify the mistake through amendment in the invoice in the one instead of issuance of a credit note. So this is what that we have told in the earlier answer to one of the queries also, that rejection should always be with due diligence. So if a mistake can be rectified, then better that you get it rectified only. And if it cannot be rectified by way of a credit note or a debit note, then you can reject it. Can the credit note be kept pending in IMS? And if no, then why? Credit note cannot be kept pending in IMS by the recipient as the supplier has reduced its outward tax liability at the time of issuance of a credit note. IMS doesn't change the existing flow where the documents or records reported by the supplier in the one is accepted and corresponding impact is reflected in 2B. Now, because of IMS, an additional option has been provided to the recipient to reject the credit note if it doesn't belong to him. So it can be, a credit note can be rejected only and only when it doesn't belong to you, but otherwise not, because at the issuer's end, he has already adjusted the tax liability. Whether liability can be added in the same 3B in case where credit note has been rejected by the recipient before filing the 3B by the supplier, it cannot be done. If a credit note is rejected by the recipient, liability of the supplier is increased on the portal to that extent in the 3B of the subsequent tax period and not in the same tax period. So there will be a gap of one tax period for you. So in the subsequent tax period only, the adjustments will get reflected. Next slide, please.
So can I launch a poll, sir?
Yeah, please.
Audience, I'm quickly launching a poll related to the today's topic. The poll box is on your screens. Which of the following actions is not allowed for credit note on IMS? Accept, reject, keep pending, amend. Please type your answers in the poll box. Also, audience, if you have any questions or queries that you want to ask directly to the sir, you can type in the chat box, or else you can type in the Q&A dedicated Q&A section, so that we will take up all the questions in the end of the webinar in a dedicated Q&A section.
The number of audience are also going down, maybe because that we have just read out the FAQs, but the cream on this entire thing is that the discussion that we are going to have now on the queries that the people have raised it, because that is where exactly that we can see practically what is the difficulty or what are the different kind of viewpoints that are emerging, that we can see that.
Yes, sir. So over to you, sir.
Yeah. So the query has been answered in 3 ways, that the not allowed for a credit note, that rejection is not allowed, is somebody has written, but if it doesn't belong to you, you always have a chance that you can reject it. Keep it pending. Okay, for certain point of a time that you can keep it pending, but certainly that you have to take an action. Amend, that the credit note amendment can be done only by the issuer, but not by the recipient. So this query is from the recipient's side, hence that may not be the right answer. Yeah, coming back to the presentation. So what we expect in the future? See, this is a step in the direction of pre-filled return system, which was a promise made earlier. So you know it, in the income tax regime, now we are having something called AIS, annual income statement, that it is auto-generated, where to your surprise, you will come to know that you have opened your bank account in some banks, but you forgot to operate them. So all those details are appearing in that. So similarly, that they are coming out with an option of pre-filled income tax returns also in future. So the same thing that in the indirect tax regime also the government wants to do, that they want to showcase it to you a pre-filled return, wherein that you are allowed to check the numbers, whether as per your computation and as per the pre-filled return data, the numbers are same or not, then you can go ahead for making a payment. So this will give you an opportunity that what is there in the minds of the revenue authorities in a return, that what is the tax that they are expecting and what is the tax that you wanted to offer. That kind of a discussion can happen every month at the time of filing a return. So this is a step in the direction. So once the disputes on the ITC claim are minimized by this digital accounting, it will automatically facilitate the pre-filled return system and will certainly help in easing of the compliances. So now what is happening, that when an invoice gets popped up in the IMS dashboard for you, you will have a discussion with your supplier, and only when you and your supplier are on the same page, then you are going to accept it. And once you accept it, then it will move for the tax liability and ITC availment and further actions. So in such a scenario, what happens? The disputes gets minimized. So that is the whole objective of introduction of this IMS. Now the B2C invoicing is also going to be made mandatory under the invoicing, which will strengthen the process for the pre-filled return system. Currently only B2B are getting e-invoicing. But now in the B2C, on an experimental basis, that they wanted to launch e-invoicing for the e-commerce operators to start with, and later that they are going to extend this to cover everybody. So if that is going to happen, and even the turnover limit of 5 crores is also going to be reduced to cover all kinds of supplies under the e-invoicing umbrella. So if that happens, then it is going to be the next step in the pre-filled return regime, which we can expect shortly in the coming days. And there was a shocker. After that, the government has realized that they have to word it properly. Hence, again, that they have given a clarification also regarding hard locking of the auto-populated liability in the 3B. So this is not going to be implemented immediately, that they are open, that they wanted to have a stakeholders discussion. After that, like the way that they have done it for IMS, that they are going to come out with a FAQ, and after that, that they will set a timeline for introduction of this hard locking of facility in the GSTR 3B. Thereby what happens, the numbers are going to be frozen and they can't be changed at the end of the SSC. So in line with that objective, that the government is proceeding, and this is the first step, the introduction of the IMS, in order to take you towards that end goal of auto-filled returns or pre-filled returns. All right, I think that I have come to the end of my presentation. Now the floor will be open, that I am going to cover all the queries in the chat box first, and then I will go to the Q&A. So in the meanwhile, if there are any further questions, that please pose your queries in the Q&A box. Those who want to ask in person, that they can raise their hands, and certainly that we will address them their queries also. So regarding the queries that I have in the chat box, what is the right time to accept or reject? That I have already covered it. Can we accept part material? See, it is the same thing that if the invoice is accepted in part to you, then you will be communicating to your supplier to raise the credit note or a debit note, depending on what is the kind of understanding that you have it. So there is no embargo on you to take action for the way that you were doing it in the past. What is the implication on the vendor credit notes, which we have discussed it? In IMS dashboard, invoice saved by supplier on 28th October, accepted by the recipient on 29th October. When will this invoice move to 2B? See, when the invoice is generated on 28th, you have done it and you have accepted it on 29th. Definitely, it will move to the 2B on 14th of November only, because that is the time when the 2B gets generated for the month of October. Is there any offline tool available for the bulk acceptance of the transactions? Currently also, the bulk acceptance of transactions, each line item, you can check the checkbox, and collectively you can take an action the way that I have explained to you during the presentation. If it is not okay for you and you want an outside service provider, maybe some offline tools that they have to come out. As on date, that I don't see that there are any tools available in the market currently. Even Websol is in the process of developing. Maybe that they have to see your requirement in order to come out with a product. Can we sell the products less than the purchase value? See, this is nothing to do with the today's presentation, but I'm taking up this question. You can always do it, provided that you have a justification. And that is where that the government is also, if it is a justified transaction, that they are giving you inverted duty refund also. So you need to have a justification for it. It cannot be like the old Fiat case under the central excise, wherein that in order to penetrate in the market, that I want to go for losses, but still the government has to give me the refund. Cannot be the case. You have to have a justification in order to sell the product at a lesser price. Sometimes a supplier uploaded wrong invoice number, date, or amount mismatch. That time, what action is required to take? Reject. Obvious answer is reject. By mistake, if the invoice is accepted, which should be rejected, what should we do? You can always change your options, sir, till you file your 3B. Dear sir, this question is not related to today's topic, but will help a lot in my proceeding. Can you please put your views? Question: whether casual taxable person is exempted from e-invoicing, generation of IRN, QR is not required for sales invoice. See, the exemption is there. See, the e-invoicing is only for those who are having turnover of 5 crores and above. What will be the impact on 9 and 9C for 8A disclosure? Question needs to be very clear that we will not be able to take it like this. That if you can tell me what exactly your issue, then we can discuss that. No, sir, it is now 5 crores. Yes, that is why I'm telling it is 5 crores. But if you cross that 5 crores limit, then certainly e-invoicing rules will apply to you. You can't be a casual taxable person also. Yeah, I think that I have covered all the questions in the chat box. Now I am taking up the queries in the Q&A. Though this is a voluntary mechanism as of now, still authorities might ask various reconciliations based on invoices in 2B through IMS, creating complications for the taxpayers, how to deal with them. See, you are imagining a future problem, but I don't think that there is anything new that has come because of IMS. But if the authorities are going to ask, then your answer it should be as per the question that you have got. So there is no one answer to your imagination. But if certainly if something is there, then we have to tackle it then and there, depending on the query that you have received. Even if the goods of invoice dated 31st October are received by 15th November, and before the 3B filing, but the books of accounts for October will already be closed by then. The invoice booking month will change accordingly, creating issue for taxpayer to accept the invoice for October 3B. Any views on this? I told you that in such a case that you keep this invoice pending so that you can take action in the subsequent month. Nobody had hurried you to take action in this month only. So if I keep the invoice pending in the IMS for November, what will be the time period to accept it or reject it? See, when you have kept it under the pending category, then there is no time limit. The time limit is GST time limit of filing of your annual return on or before 30th of November of the subsequent financial year. Will it be till October 25 filing? Of course, yes. How much time pending invoices reflect in IMS? See, pending, if you have kept it, it will be pending till you file your next annual return. And after that, it will be deleted from the IMS dashboard. This I have clarified during the presentation. Credit note rejected by the recipient can't be kept pending for action. Is this statement applicable to supplier? What supplier needs to do in this situation? See, this statement is in relation to the recipient only, because IMS dashboard discussion is all in relation to the recipient, not from the supplier's point of view. IMS applicable for service invoices? Of course, yes. What is the HSN code in context of GST? How to calculate ITC? What is HSN code in the context of GST? How to calculate ITC? Sir, this is a very vague question. I say, sorry to say this, because HSN is the tariff number by which that you can decide what is the tax rate for you by going through the relevant notifications. And how to calculate your ITC? First of all, that you should know that you have brought these supplies, you have received these supplies in or in relation to your business and subject to the Section 17 and other conditions. So this cannot be answered in vague. That if you are very specific, maybe that I would have tried to answer your question. Thought ITC eligibility is based on 2B. Authorities still ask RICO between 2A and 3B during the audit and assessment. What if a new bunch of queries are being raised? See, sir, this imagination doesn't have any kind of an end. As per the questions, you have to answer it. There is no one single answer to the various kinds of questions or various kind of permutations and combinations the authorities can come out with. We have to tackle it then and there, depending on the circumstances that we face. In 9, whether table 8A be auto-populated basis 2B or 2A. Already the annual returns are auto-populated. So you can see this year itself. IMS applicable for services? Yes, I have already answered this. Applicable for service invoices? Yes. So I have answered all the queries that are there in the Q&A box also. If you have partial eligible ITC, how to claim? See, it has got nothing to do with IMS. If you have got a partial eligible ITC, you can claim it, and the balance has to be adjusted through credit note and debit note after discussions with your supplier. So I have covered all the questions also. If there are any participants, there are 2 persons who have raised their hands. So if they have got any questions to ask, then maybe Pawan, you can unmute them.
Sir, audience, if you want to ask directly any questions with the sir, you can raise the hands in the.
There have already 2 persons, Satyanarayana and Mr. Kashinath, have raised their hands.
Yes, sir. Mr. Satyanarayana, you can unmute your mic and you can ask a question. Mr. Satyanarayana, I have allowed you to talk. You can unmute your mic and you will be able to ask the question.
I don't think that he is interested. Maybe Kashinath.
Yes, sir. Mr. Kashinath, you can talk now, please.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
The question is here, we have obtained one casual registration recently,
Okay.
and for that, our turnover is around 150 CR.
Okay.
And since from 2021, we are doing the e-invoicing and all. But when
Pardon?
2021, we are doing the e-invoicing for all our sales invoice with the permanent registration.
Okay.
And I obtained this casual registration, and when I tried to go for the e-invoice portal and generate the things, and we are tie up with some other service provider for generation of IRN in that portal also. So we are unable to generate the IRN for this one, but there is an error message from the government portal. It says that your registration number is not with the IST or the regular kind of thing.
Yeah, very surprising. When you are having a 150 crores turnover, what is the necessity for you to come out with a casual taxable person?
No. There is a kind of event where we are going to happen in other states where we do not have a permanent establishment. It is just on 3 days or 4 days event kind of thing.
Okay. Okay.
So for that kind of event where we normally obtain the casual registration and we disperse the liability over there from the casual registration.
Okay. Okay. Got it. So why such a problem is coming then? Because that maybe that they are going by your PAN number, because in the casual taxable person also you are using the same PAN, right?
Yeah, it's the same PAN number.
Yeah. So precisely for that reason, I think that they were not able to understand. But have you approached the help desk?
Yes, a number of times, a number of times.
Okay. What is their answer?
That's again the same. Your registration number is not part of the regular or ACD kind of thing.
No. See,
Since
it
it's the
cannot
casual
happen. No.
taxable
See,
person.
regular registration you may be having in Kerala. In Tamil Nadu, that you are having an event for 3 days for which substantial amount of credit is there. Hence, you want to take a registration there and close the matter and come back.
That is true.
So
So
that
I'm
can be
looking
done.
for.
So how that they can question that it is not linked to your regular, it will be there in Karnataka, but in Kerala, in Tamil Nadu, where you wanted to do a casual supplies and all that, that you cannot have, they cannot force you to take ISD or a permanent registration, no?
Not sure, but that error message is like that. I can.
No, error message can come because the system is a programmed one. But the people who are there in the help desk, they should be able to come to your rescue by understanding what is your specific transaction that you have on hand, and what is the solution that they have to give it. They should allow your casual taxable person registration. I don't see any kind of a problem. Which state you are facing this?
No. The kind of registration they are allowing me, and I am
Correct.
discussing the liability and filing the 1 and 3B and everything is fine.
Right.
For the
So your
invoice,
query is
sales
regarding
invoices,
the
I was unable
e-invoicing.
to generate the IRN. Yes.
But IRN will not be permitted because that casual taxable person's registration doesn't have 5 crores, but at a PAN level you have 5 crores, more than 5 crores, no?
Yeah. PAN level, I have more than 5 crore.
So,
It should be allowed. My question is that.
okay. So you are saying that being a casual taxable person, though my turnover is more than 5 crores, why I am not being allowed? That
Yes.
is because of the reason that they might not have foreseen such a kind of a scenario. So hence they might have put a embargo on all casual taxable persons not to raise a e-invoice. That is the reason IRN will not be there for you.
Yeah, that kind of notification or circular somehow you come across anytime.
Sir, there is no law that you have to give an IRN and all. These are some facility measures in order to curb the evasion. So in such a scenario, there will not be any kind of a rules or regulations, but the help desk persons should only be able to give you, because you have to ask a question that my turnover at a PAN level, all India, is more than 5 crores. But for my casual taxable person's registration, I am not in a position to generate the IRN. So is it fine that if I am going with the manual invoicing process, not by e-invoicing? If you ask that question, if they say that yes, for casual taxable person, there is no requirement of IRN and all, then you are safe in the future audits.
No. Okay.
So get it in writing. When it is not there, then you create an occasion for them to give it in writing.
Oh, done.
Got the point, sir?
Yeah, sir. Very much.
Please.
Thank you.
Right, sir. Any other questions? Already we have lost half of our participants, because I know it that at the end, that when you do not have any questions and all, you tend to leave the sessions. So if there are any more questions, that I can wait for some time.
Also, participants, you will be receiving your webinar recording and the presentation deck in your mails right after the webinar.
So the next webinar for the month of November is scheduled around some 20th, I think, or 21st or so, that we have decided on the date. But before that, if the GST, there are two important meetings that are likely to happen. One, a rate rationalization committee may announce some of their decisions, because already the discussions have happened. Particular points of interest will be whether there is going to be GST on insurance, particularly on the health insurance front and senior citizens insurances and all that. So, and the 28% rate, how it is going to be, and whether the compensation cess is going to be subsumed to the GST rate. On all these aspects, rate rationalization committee already held discussions. So they may come out with some announcements. So that is going to be one interesting topic. The second one is, if the GST Council meeting also is scheduled anytime before 21st, definitely that we will be covering those decisions also, which are of interest to you. But otherwise, that if people are having any kind of particular topic in their minds, they can always come out with their suggestions. We are open that we can cover those topics in our future webinars also. And I see that Shailesh is having any question. Mr. Shailesh?
Mr. Silas, if you have any question, you can raise the hand, or else you can type in the chat box so that we can allow you to talk.
I don't think that he is interested in. He's still there in the session, but okay. So these are the two important points that I just wanted to share it with you. Rate rationalization committee, any decisions, or the GST meeting, if something is going to happen, certainly that we will be covering, or otherwise you can come out with your own suggestions for the future topics. Yeah, Silesh has come out with one query that we have 2,000 more purchase invoices in month. How we can take action on individual bills? Currently, what you are doing, Mr. Silesh, you must be doing the same thing, sir. They are not asking you to do anything. If you have got 2,000 invoices, purchase invoices in a month, are you taking credit or not? So they are telling you the same thing, that they are not forcing you to take any action beyond what you are currently doing also.
Mr. Umesh Babu also having a question, sir.
Yeah, it is not a question whether this session is available offline, that you will be receiving the recording of this presentation and also the slides. So you can refer to them always in the future.
Also, audience, after the webinar, I will be sending you a survey link for the next webinar topic. As so suggested, we take reviews from your end. You can select, or else if you have any other topic in mind, you can always suggest us.
Yeah,
for the
two
next
topics,
webinar.
probable topics, I told you, whether they are going to be the reality or not, we do not know. Rate rationalization committee decisions, and then the 55th GST Council meeting decisions.
Yes, sir. With that, we are wrapping up the today's webinar. Thank you, sir. Thank you, participants, for today's interactive webinar.
Thank you all for joining us for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.